This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right, so the Browns have issues to fix on offense outside of just quarterback and outside of just offensive line. Another area where people have talked about the Browns and needing more help in is in pass catcher, right? Tight end, wide receiver. Even though tight end is pretty full, wide receiver leaves a little bit of room to be desired. So how can the Browns address that position? What kind of resources are they going to have to use to address those positions, and what could a remake of these rooms look like that could be successful? We're going to talk about all of that and more, but first I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. Okay, so if you watch my offensive line video, you have the basic rules for how this is going to work. We're going to go through the room, pick some guys who I think are going to be leaving, some changes that are going to happen, and the resources that the Browns could use to fix this. Now, in that video, I already used some of the resources for the offensive line. So right here, it's $20 million per year. I used that to bring in Rasheed Walker, a starting left tackle for the Browns, and a third, and I believe the Cincinnati fifth. So we're going to put that at the back here. These three I cannot use. The $20 million, third and fifth, that has already been used for the offensive line. But I still have the Cleveland first, the Jacksonville first, the Cleveland second, the Cleveland fourth, the Cleveland fifth, and the Cincinnati fifth. Oh no, my bad. The Cincinnati fifth needs to go here. The Cleveland fifth, the Seattle seventh, and $10 million a year, which I'm going to use. So right now, if we're looking at the Browns starters, at Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, Harold Fannin, and David Njoku. I think they're probably going to let David Njoku walk in the offseason. Jamari Thrash looks like he's going to be on his way out as well. For whatever reason, he can't get out the doghouse. I like Jamari Thrash coming out of college, but it is painfully obvious that there is something about him that they are not a fan of in that building. So that's unfortunate, right? First thing that we're going to throw at this wide receiver room here is the Jacksonville first. I think the Browns are absolutely going to use the Jacksonville first to bring in a wide receiver. And I think that wide receiver is going to push Isaiah Bond to the rotation. Another resource that I think the Browns are going to use, because they need a veteran in that room. They need somebody who's been around for a little while, has a name that people can respect, and take some of the leadership burden off of Jerry Jeudy while also not doing a ton that Jerry Jeudy does. I think the guy for this role could potentially be somebody like a Deebo Samuel. So we're going to use that $10 million a year for Deebo. It's about what he would go for in free agency, and I think that's a right number to pay for a vet. So we're going to move Harold Fannin here, and have Cedric Tillman probably move down here to the rotation. So now this Browns starting lineup is going to be Jerry Jeudy. Best case scenario, like a Mekhi Lemon or somebody like that, or a David Boston. You can bring in let me just throw that here. You could bring in a Deebo Samuel, right? So you got Deebo Samuel here. And then you have Harold Fannin. I think the Browns will probably draft another wide receiver. Maybe not in the second if they use the Jacksonville first, but let's use this early fourth on a wide receiver. And then we're probably talking about bringing in another tight end in the 6. So another tight end here. We can get rid of like one of these guys, Brendan Bates, let him walk. And then Cedric Tillman here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys here. You'll probably revert to be more of an 11 personnel team next year, especially since you spent money on the line. You keep Isaiah Bond. He's in a more appropriate situation as kind of a gadget guy. Gage Larvin and everybody else in that room. And that could be the first initial way to kind of shake up the room. So Jerry Jeudy, whoever you draft in Jacksonville's first, Deebo Samuel, you can use Cedric Tillman as a big wide receiver as well. And I think the underrated element of this is that you get faster, more athletic at wide receiver, while also retaining your ability to block, right? Deebo Samuels is going to be a really good blocking wide receiver, and Cedric Tillman is still a pretty strong blocking wide receiver, and Harold Fannin is a tight end, is a really good blocking wide receiver. I'm going to be honest with you. This might be a controversial take or a hot take. I don't think the Browns receiving room is really that far off from being decent. I think we're a little bit lower on this room because some of the pieces have underperformed this year. And I think part of the reason they've underperformed is because we've played so many quarterbacks this year, and so many of those quarterbacks have been inexperienced or just past their prime. Or at least the offensive structure too has not done them any favors. So I don't think they're that far. I think that Cedric Tillman, if he can stay healthy, can be a productive piece on your offense. I think that you can look at a guy like a Isaiah Bond and say to yourself, hey, when he's not asked to do too much, he's actually pretty good for your offense, or at least can be productive for you. A Gage Larvin, who I think has been pretty useful for you. Jerry Jeudy is a good wide receiver. It's just you cannot rely on him to be your number one exclusive kind of wide receiver is going to do it all for you. I think you need to take the burden off of him. But if you spend $10 million to get a Deebo Samuel, and then you use a first round pick on a wide receiver, all of a sudden the pressure's off of Jerry Jeudy, and you have yourself exactly what you wanted in Jerry Jeudy. So I think it's really not going to take too much. I want to leave here in the draft with 2 wide receivers, have some picks to spare here. They might be willing to spend a 3rd and a 5th here. If the Browns did spend a 3rd and a 5th there, that would probably change what they do at offensive line, because you already have some of those picks slotted for offensive linemen. But yeah, like the Browns could also trade for a starting wide receiver. There's a lot of avenues for the Browns to improve the offensive wide receiver room. And I think that is something to be considered as well. So I expect there to be a lot of movement there. The Browns are going to bring in a veteran, I think, at wide receiver, whether that be Deebo Samuel or whether that be through a trade, and they try to get somebody closer to a number 1 guy in a Brian Thomas Jr., then that's also something they could do. But this is one of those rooms where you think lowly of it right now, but if they add 1 or 2 big names, or at least a name in a draft and a name in free agency, you're going to come back looking at this room completely different. Now, some of you might ask, hey, Quincy, why not use that Cleveland first, your first round pick, on a wide receiver, or to kind of get that game changer, right? That number 1 overall wide receiver. If that guy were in this draft, I think there would be a serious conversation, right? If this were the draft, like let's say the Browns had a top 3 pick and they could go quarterback, they could go Jeremiah Smith. I think there's a conversation to be had there, because Jeremiah Smith is a game changer at the wide receiver position. I think this draft class is very deep at wide receiver. And when I talk to people who cover the draft and who scout for the draft, they say the same thing, right? This draft class is deep at wide receiver, but there's no big ace of spade, right? If you're a spades player, you will understand what I'm saying. But there's no big ace of spade type wide receiver in this class. There's a lot of low spades and there's a lot of face cards in this draft. A lot of guys who are going to have 1,000 yards multiple times in their career. A lot of guys who are going to be really productive wide receivers for their career, but not a ton of guys who are going to be a Jamar Chase or an undeniable top tier #1 wide receiver. Here's what I mean by it, right? If we look at the class, Jordan Tyson, I like him a lot, but if you look at his numbers, they aren't numbers that would suggest that he is the #1 option of #1 options. Carnell Tate's going to be really good, but is Carnell Tate somebody who's going to be one of the best wide receivers in football? Is he going to be one of the best 5 or 10 wide receivers in football? I don't know if that's his potential. Makai Lemon, I like Makai Lemon a lot. The production is certainly there for Makai Lemon, but Makai Lemon is not really the type of receiver that people are talking about. He's kind of I think Browns fans are going to talk themselves out of Makai Lemon, and I think that's going to be unfortunate because I think Makai Lemon is the exact type of wide receiver that you want if you can ignore the fact that he's 6 foot and 195 pounds. We're talking about a high producer, a 50-50 ball guy, somebody who goes up and gets it. That's Makai Lemon. Now, Denzel Boston, who is the son of David Boston, 6'4", 209, big body guy, goes up and gets it, but he's not really an all-around guy. There's a lot of guys who could do 2-3 things well in this class. Omar Cooper, right? We can go down the list. There's even like Nick Harbor, who has incredible, speed, right? Kind of reminds you a little bit of a DK Metcalf. But if you're looking for those 1-1 guys, right, the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, they're just not in this draft class. And that is what it is. So you're not going to get that true one in this class. So to me, the difference between spending that top 5 pick on a wide receiver and the Jacksonville pick on a wide receiver, I don't think there's that much difference there, right? If you could get Makai Lemon in the back of the first round and you can get Carnell Tate at the top of the first round or Jordan Tyson at the top of the first round, I don't think there's that much of a difference between Makai Lemon and Denzel Boston than these two, right? You may feel differently, but that's just how I feel. That's why I think they're going to use that Jacksonville first on a wide receiver. You get Debo, and I know people are going to act like Debo is cooked, but if you've been watching Debo this year, he's actually been one of the more productive parts of the Commanders' offense. I think he's been pretty useful for them this season. We could pull up his numbers. Yeah, about 62 receptions, about 561 yards, 5 touchdowns. So he's been a productive member of the team. He still does some of the Debo stuff. Clearly not the 1,400-yard guy that he was in San Francisco, but you're only paying $10 million for him. You want him to be a vet and then be productive on the side. I think Debo can absolutely do that for you. And you have a room here, if you go with this, that is young, has the potential to grow, and you can continue to invest more in it. So if you are in the position next year to get Jeremiah Smith, you can easily slot Jeremiah Smith in, let Debo walk in free agency, and then boom, you have the wide receiver room of your dreams. But this would be a significant upgrade from where they were last year. You could just add these 2 names, put these pieces in the right spot. I think that would be really good. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.